Authentication is about making sure we know who you are and having a high level of confidence that it can be no one else. What we do at a minimum in today's networks is we ask for people's usernames and passwords, right? But you really improve things if you have digital certificates or if you have biometrics, fingerprint readers. I mean, I've got one baked into my phone right now. And a lot of laptops have that. Biometrics also would include retina scans, which are absolutely something that are used in high security environments. Now, when we talk about the configuration of authentication, and this is really the big thing to pick up, I want you to get more than what we just have on this page. Now, first, we can use this to control authentication of a lot of different types. PPP supports authentication via things like CHAP and PAP. If you're using PPP for PPPoE, PPPoA, or just classic PPP for WAN connectivity, you could authenticate the other side, whatever's out there. You could use .1x. You could use it for .1x. But we're going to focus on AAA for logins, authorization for logins, people who are logging in to get what is called character mode access to our gear. There are what are called method lists, which say, here's where we're going to get our information. And it can list what are called 4 methods, which can be ordered. And the order that you specify is important. And a method could be a Radius server, a TACX Plus server, the local user database, and none. We want to know each of these. Wow, this is a whole new world, isn't it? Let's get some exposure right now. And so let me clear off the screen and get involved here. Starting with the way that you set things up, you do this command AAA new model. Now that is a very impactful command. You want to think, and that's a keyword, by the way. New model doesn't look like a keyword in Cisco operating system, but it is. It says, I want to use AAA. Can't use AAA unless you have that command. So that's flip the switch, turn it on. Otherwise, you're relegated to different privilege levels, like 0 through 15, and really nothing like what we're talking about here. Then you set up the methods. Now, there are a lot of different methods you can have. So you could say AAA authentication, and you could indicate a lot of different services that are out there. Let's say I want to use authentication for 802.1x authentication. You'd say this. If you're using it for people who are logging in, you'd say, I'm going to use it, I'm going to do AAA authentication login. And that's the first thing to master. You gotta learn AAA in steps. And the first step is AAA for logins. That means whoever's doing administration of this chassis, whoever's trying to get to privileged mode, to execute commands, that's what a login authentication is all about. And then you say, is this going to apply everywhere unless overridden? That's what default says. Or is this only going to be a method list? This is a method list that I'm constructing. Is this only going to be a method list that applies when explicitly referenced on the line? So let's say example method 1. The next thing is, so this isn't going to apply to anything until I apply it. If I had used default, which is a keyword, it's very different. That blankets the entire chassis. So I say example method 1, and then I say something like, where do I check for passwords? And let's say I do local, check for the local database. Now that's not scalable. So maybe I want to check out my group of Radius servers first. You can see that it also ties into TACX Plus or LDAP if you want. Group Radius. Great. Then, what's next? Let's say I can't communicate with my Radius servers. We want a fallback. So what we can do then is we can go with local or the enable secret. So you could say, you know what? I'll just use the enable secret password. I'm going to use local. Then you have to use, or you have to understand, none. None says allow them. We give up. All the services are gone, so we're just going to give them the keys to the kingdom. Please remember that none is the permit all command. It's the permit all keyword for this structure. It does not say deny. And that is very counterintuitive. Imagine being asked a test question on this in a Cisco exam. And they show you, like, what happens after local? Well, then your choices would be, then nothing is allowed, or everything is allowed. And everything is allowed is the right answer. That is not intuitive, is it? Now, I haven't configured any Radius servers. So let's do that. Radius server. And then we say a host, and then we give it an IP address of the host. Let's say it's that's my host. Now I might just say, boom. That's my Radius server. And it says we prefer Radius space server. Great. So I'm using old syntax, but I can improve upon that. And let's say switch block 1 radius. And then what can I do here? We say address, and you can specify a number of parameters. You can say things like the shared secret key, which you would definitely do. And it's giving me a hard time. Not going to worry about that too much. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of that. All right, we got that configured, and it's not yelling at us anymore. And so we could say a shared secret key between the Radius server and this switch so that we know, hey, I'm talking to a trustworthy Radius server. Boy, wow, there's a lot going on here. Now the last thing, let me show you what I'm taking you through. So we did AAA new model first, and then we walked you through setting up a method list. Okay, method list. For instance, local says the username commands that are stored in the local running config and startup config. That's what they're challenging. Or a group of Radius servers. Or TACX Plus servers, which is very similar, but a Cisco proprietary service. And then none, which says allow. Those are your takeaways. And by the way, I didn't apply the method list, so let's just see kind of the basic syntax. So I say login, authentication, and then the name of the method list that I had configured, which was example method. I had to scroll up pretty big ways. So now, if someone comes in to VTY 0 through 4, they're going to be challenged by whatever methods I've specified in my method list. That's the sort of thing that can be done with AAA authentication.